Hello! Today we welcome Éric Lenoir, President of SILMO, to introduce the very first podcast of this series dedicated to corporate social responsibility.
Hello, everybody. I'm very pleased to introduce this first podcast on corporate social responsibility and especially the work on this issue led by SILMO, the International Eyewear and Optics Trade Show, in collaboration with its community. All over the world, CSR is sparkling enthusiastic debates and raising many questions, making it necessary for us to act now. Whether CSR protocols are mandated by law or adopted out conviction, whether they are experience as yet another hindrance or on the contrary, at a great opportunity for transformation, I believe that today all industries can no longer ignore this famous corporate social responsibility. In 2019, as part of our mission to inspire and energize the optics and eyewear industry, we spearheaded a collective effort to reflect on these issues, the goal being to construct a solid and international CSR approach for the entire industry. While we await the publication of a report summarizing the feedback of industry professionals worldwide, we are offering a series of podcasts to explore CSR. I'm pleased, though, to introduce this first episode with my guests, Géraldine Bouchot. She is editorial director of trends and forecasts at Carlin International, and Stéphane Popescu, the founder of Cause 361. They will discuss consumer expectations, the search for meaning, resilience, and most importantly, the impact of the current pandemic on companies' CSR policies. Now, more than ever, I believe we need to be asking ourselves the right questions to grow our insights. As we all know, we are on the cusp of a future that will have to combine creativity and responsibility, innovation and intelligence, financial performance and doing good. But now let's hear from the experts.
Hello, Géraldine. Thank you for being with us today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Géraldine, could you give us an overview of how CSR is defined in terms of international standards?
Well, the corporate social responsibility involves the voluntary incorporation of social and environmental issues into a company's business operations and into their relations with stakeholders. So, a company with a CSR policy wants to have a positive impact on society while running a sound business. ISO 26000 is an international standard that defines the scope of CSR based on 7 core subjects. The first one is organizational governance, human rights, labor practices, environment, fair operating practices, consumer issues, and last, community involvement and development. So, in May 2019, France took the next step in formalizing how companies interact with society by passing the PACT law. This legislation promotes a company's growth and transformation by making it possible for a company to incorporate its raison d'être, or let's say purpose, into its legal bylaws. Here, a company's purpose refers to how it intends to play a role in society beyond its core economic activity and how it would be able to play this role in a legally binding way. For example, the SNCF purpose reads, to provide everyone with the freedom to travel easily while preserving the planet. And SNCF has really incorporated this purpose into its legal statutes. This change in the common role of companies is really a step up with a major development in society. Citizen consumers, or consommateurs as they are now called in French, are looking for more meaning and social purpose in the companies or brands they choose to buy from. Because it all always comes down to individuals and their needs or desires, and also companies' willingness to meet these.
So, given this context, how new consumer behavior starting to develop? What types of change is Carlin seeing?
Well, for many years, we've been seeing a change in mentality overall, with a growing number of people becoming more environmentally aware. According to the Green Flex Barometer published in May 2019, so in other words, before COVID-19, 60% of French people believe that we must urgently take action for the sake of the planet's future. This has been a gradual yet profound change that is mostly expressed through new attitudes about consuming. For example, the consumption of organic food products is continually on the rise. More recently, we have seen bulk sales take off and eventually adopted big box French retailers such as Leclerc, Carrefour, and Auchan. And this is a sign that this trend is no longer just a niche of consumers, but rather a widespread phenomenon. At the same time, we are seeing a change in attitudes about buying second-hand clothes, shifting from embarrassing to trending, with the appearance of apps such as Vinted. These provide shoppers with good deals, the opportunity to easily update their wardrobes, and peace of mind that they are being eco-friendly, but in a much younger, hip way than via eBay, for example. And today, all sectors are undergoing a transformation. More and more brands are trying to show off their social commitment, such as through a line of ecologically designed products, planting trees to counterbalance any negative impact, or even offering recycling, upcycling, or a repair service for their products. All these changes in products and services are not because brands or companies have become do-gooders overnight, but rather because the public is increasingly demanding more mindful ways to consume.
So we are seeing more socially aware consumer behavior. But how does this so-called mindful consumption play out in concrete terms?
According to a survey conducted by Wani and Opinionway in September 2019 among Europeans, which includes French citizens, of course, three main criteria define this concept of mindful consumption. The first one is wasteful consumption of food, which represents the most important concern for European consumer, voiced by 68% of French respondents and 66% of Portuguese participants. The second one is planned obsolescence, is the second biggest issue. 46% of French responses, 50% of Hungarians, 49% of Portuguese, and 41% of Spaniards. And the last one, product manufacturing methods, is the third major concern for European consumers. More than 30% of respondents, including 34% in France. Overall, 90% of European consumers say they are aware of mindful consumption and feel they are acting in ways to reach this goal. Such results were unthinkable 15 years ago. You can understand why brands and companies are doing some soul searching. If they don't change the pattern, they risk losing their consumers in the long term. As from now, the competition is set between quality and price. Before COVID-19, we were already in a new phase of consumer behavior, which could be viewed as a weak signal of what is being called deconsumption.
Deconsumption is a big step, and one can imagine that it brings about changes to people's lifestyles. Are you seeing this phenomenon happening in society?
As with any underlying trend, several phenomena intersect and interact with each other and ultimately cause societal changes. What we are seeing is that the drivers for purchasing sustainable goods are evolving as consumers reconnect with all aspects of their lives. Again, according to the Green Flex Consumption Barometer, 89% of French people say they buy seasonal products. 68% prefer furniture made in France. 63% consider animal welfare practices when purchasing clothes. But also, 59% of French people save, reuse, and repair their products. In short, the need to become an agent of change beyond one's personal consumer habits was already an issue before the current pandemic, a need which has only grown since the lockdown.
So, we are faced with very demanding consumers in terms of new experiences and immediacy. But we are also seeing a real desire to do good. How are brands affected by these behaviors? How are they responding?
Customers' expectations concerning experiences are at the same high level, but a company's social commitment has become a crucial issue, especially for consumers under 40. According to a study by Accenture published in February 2020, 41% of French participants aged 18-39 said they are more attracted to companies that connect them to important common causes. In Spain, 46%, in Ireland, 43%, in the UK, 42%, and in Italy, 38%. 63% of 18-39 years old are more attracted to companies that choose their suppliers according to strict ethical criteria. 57% of the same age group are attracted to companies that are active in and defend societal and cultural causes. So it is a matter of adapting to the strong societal expectations of the younger generations. A brand's viability depends on it. And these expectations of social commitment became even more apparent in France during the pandemic as a way to cope with the situation. You might recall how L'Oréal responded, producing huge amounts of hand sanitizer gel, SMEs who switched their productions line to making masks, or even restaurants delivering meals to hospital staff. Such concrete actions improved their images with consumers. On a more general level, today there are many brands who get involved through a specific course of action. A few recent examples include Kenzo and WWF. On September 22nd, 2020, Kenzo announced its efforts to protect wild tigers through its support of the T x2 initiative, whose goal is to double the world's population of tigers in the next 2 years. And also we have Uniqlo and its Re-Uniqlo campaign, which is a program for giving used clothes a second life. This season, the brand released a puffer made of recycled down feathers from some 620,000 jackets the brand collected this past year and its Japanese stores. Carrefour is currently exploring the big problem of waste caused by disposable masks that we can see everywhere. Starting in October 2020, the retailer began providing recycling solutions for surgical masks in 10 of its locations in the Île-de-France region, which includes Paris, of course. But there are also many smaller brands launching online founded on a sustainable business model. Tiptoe is one example, a DNVB or let's say a digital native vertical brand whose mission is to create sustainable furniture featuring better design and better production. Besides the brand's eco-friendly commitment, it has signed the Committed DNVB Charter and is working with ESAT, an organization that supports people with disabilities. Tiptoe also supports the Toi à Moi Association through regular donations of furniture for housing for the homeless. Although these are small niche labels, they are able to compete with more mainstream brands based on a business model that gives priority CSR requirements, thus positioning them to attract the new under 40 generation of consumers we've been talking about previously.
Is the pandemic impacting these behaviors? Can we detect even more consumer commitment, or have their priorities changed?
We need to make a difference between the lockdown phase in France and what we are experiencing since the end of the lockdown. The lockdown was above all a parenthesis that put many restrictions on consumption. The lifting of the lockdown did not radically change our consumer behavior, but it did accelerate trends already at work before the crisis. So people who were already questioning the meaning of how they consumed thought more about the issue, where others resumed to their previous ways of consuming. But as we've seen, many of them had already been shifting towards consuming with greater awareness, at least in how they describe their behavior. According to the INOV study from July 2020 on French consumer habits, following the lockdown, 1 person out of 3 said they wanted to do everything possible to consume more responsibly. This desire for change was mostly the case for younger respondents, 43% for the age 18 to 34, and city dwellers, 39% of residents of cities with more than 200,000 inhabitants, 45% for the Paris metropolitan area. 2 other phenomena related to the pandemic need to be considered. The first one is the public health crisis is changing the purpose of brands needs to be committed to society and individuals. We have gone from consumers pressuring for more transparency, quality, and protecting the environment to a need to be more focused on health, proximity, and reassurance. Brands have to be not only flawless on their CSR standards, but also in how they reassure their consumers about COVID-19. They have to become brands that protect their consumers, both for their own health and that of the planet. In fact, it is a commitment that becomes global and holistic. The second phenomena is the rise of e-commerce. No surprise, COVID-19 has accelerated online shopping. According to the Selligent study from July 2020, 36% of survey participants have become skilled at shopping online on a weekly basis, compared to 28% before the pandemic. I should somewhat qualify my remarks by reminding you that what people say they intend to do does not always lead to them making radical changes, even after the lockdown. Bad habits can persist among consumers. On this note, the Enough study reveals that 1 in 4 French people gave in after the lockdown was lifted and went revenge shopping, even though 38% of the French say they want to change everything. Thus, we can conclude that just as before the lockdown, French people are still mostly ethical, pragmatic consumers, as we refer to them at Carlin. What this means also is that they are consumers who aspire to a better world, who are definitely changing their behaviors, but who in everyday life may still retain their old world consumer habits for comfort, pleasure, or even financial reasons. What is undeniable, however, is despite all that, these consumers expect brands to be increasingly blameless. That's the paradox of our time.
Thank you very much, Geraldine. Thank you for sharing all this information with us.
Thank you to you.
In a future episode, we will see how brands are responding to these consumer demands, especially in the context of the pandemic. We will be talking with Stéphane Popescu, CEO of Cause 361, an agency that helps fashion companies navigate the implementation of a CSR policy. See you very soon.